Okay, so let me get this on full view. So the title of the talk, as Ren said, is One Ocean, Three Approaches, Five Issues, and Seven Solutions. My name is Sunil Murlidhar Shastri, and I'm a consultant, educator, and speaker in ocean and environmental governance. And that's what I have been doing since I met the great Avni Benham and Elizabeth Mann Borghese in around the same time. So for almost 42 years now. So I'm delighted to be sharing what I think is my sort of my life story, as it were, but also more about my personal approach to this whole situation. So I would like to first of all uh, ask you to look at my logo, which is let me just move this here. If you look at my logo, it's ocean and environmental governance, and you'll see it's got 6 circles underneath it. And the first circle is people, you can see. The second one is planet. The third one is money, pounds, euros, and
Sunil
dollars.
sir, Sunil sir, we are not able to see the circles presentation.
Here underneath my logo, on the top right hand side.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So it's people, planet, prosperity, as it were, and then equity, justice, and peace. So this is what has driven me, throughout my 42 years since I came under the tutelage of Elizabeth Mann Borghese and Avni Benham. So let me start my presentation by taking you to the space rather than to the ocean. So really, this is a picture which is very poignant now because of the news yesterday. It's called the Earthrise picture, and I think all of you probably have seen it. And this was taken by Apollo astronaut William Anders on the 24th of December, 1968. I say poignant because William Anders died yesterday. In fact, he died at the age of 90, taking a solo flight. Imagine somebody taking a solo flight at the age of 90, and the flight unfortunately crashed and he died. But anyway, so this is the photograph, and this photograph was called by Galen Rowell, a very famous environmental photographer himself, and he said that this is the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. Why? Because for the first time, any human being saw the earth rise. Because before that, all the human beings had seen sunrise and moonrise, but they had never seen the earth rise. And more importantly, when you look at the earth from the moon, you see that a lot of it is planet ocean. So in fact, it was said that it is wrong to call our planet Earth. We should call it planet ocean rather than calling it planet Earth. And what Anders said was even more important. And what he said was, we set out to explore the moon, and instead we discovered the earth. So this is what that picture signifies. And this is what I want to focus on, that there is only one planet, there's only one ocean, and there's only one earth. And that's what we want to focus on. That's why I have got the first bit of my title as One Ocean, and that's where we want to take it from. Now, One Ocean, if you see my website, it's called oceangovernance.org, says that our whole thinking must change. Of course, I say that the change must come from within, and each one of us must be an agent of change, which I say from time to time. The concept of one ocean is crucial to everything we do. So that's what my whole, the main point today would be, is that you have to refer to the ocean as one ocean. In fact, if you see the United Nations logo, it says World Oceans Day. And I have tried to argue this with a whole lot of United Nations and EU people, but it is stuck as the World Oceans Day. I would like to call it the World Ocean Day, use the word ocean in singular to bring home the point that there's only one ocean. And I'll come back to why we have only one ocean and not the several oceans that I have just described now further. So there are 3 oceans according to some: the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. There are 5 oceans according to some others: and they are the Arctic, the Southern, the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. And some will also have 7 oceans if you split the Atlantic and the Pacific into South and North Pacific and so on. But really speaking, there's only one ocean, just as we have only one planet. The Pacific Sea, the Pacific Ocean alone is larger than the surface of the area of Mars. The reason I'm saying this is because we are spending billions and billions to go to the Mars to find a place to live, and spending billions and billions to destroy the planet that is the only home for us. So there's, this whole idea of going to Mars may be, a good science or good from the point of view of understanding the universe and stuff like that. But we have to take care of our planet, and the billions that we are spending on space research could be diverted more rightly, for example, to protection of our own planet and our ocean. 5 moons can be placed side by side across the Pacific, and there's some place left after that. So basically that shows how vast the Pacific Ocean alone is. Antipodes, antipodes are opposite sides on the Earth. So if you take a point on one side of the Earth, the exact opposite side of the Earth will have a point that is called antipode. So the Pacific's so big that the antipode just offshore of Chile and Peru are just offshore of Vietnam and China. So it's basically the entire swathe of that, half of the Earth, which is the Pacific. All continents can fit in the Pacific, which is 50% of all the water of the Earth. The ocean has, 99%, 97 point whatever percent of water, but 50% of that water is all in the Pacific. Now, the reason I want to come back again to this point of one ocean is because of this map. We have always seen the map of the world, either the Philip projection or the Mercator projection, but this is a different type of projection. This is called the Spillhouse projection. Actually, it's not new. It was there around Second World War time and somewhat later, but it became very, as we say, viral. It became viral just before COVID, around 2019, 2020, around that time. And you can see now this map, or this Spillhouse projection, is using the Antarctica as the center of the world and then showing the rest of the world. And there you see the ocean is all one. It's all interconnected. There is no separate ocean like Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean or Indian Ocean or the Southern Ocean or the Arctic Ocean, Arctic Sea or whatever. They're all one. They're all one. Not only the ocean is one, but because all the rivers eventually meet the ocean, it's all one water body. So it's not many water bodies, it's just one water body. So what you do in one part of the Earth, one part of the ocean, has impact on the other part of the ocean. And that's the reason I want to have that key message going through my title of one ocean. And there is no 2 oceans or 3 oceans or 5 oceans or 7 oceans or whatever that might be. And just as we have one planet, we have just this one ocean. So how big is the ocean again? So we always study in geography, school geography, that 71% of the Earth's surface is ocean. Fine, that's the surface of the ocean. But in terms of living space, what we call as biosphere, it's 99% of the world's living space. So that's what is ocean. The ocean is 99%. It offers 99% of the world's living space, the biosphere. The sea to land ratio is 60 to 40. Now, Northern Hemisphere predominantly, we think, is predominantly land, terra firma, but it's not really so. The sea to land ratio, so the sea is still larger in the Northern Hemisphere. 60% is ocean and 40% is the land in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, it's 80% ocean, 80% sea, and only 20% land. So again, it's predominantly ocean. So one ocean. Average depth of the ocean is 3,733 meters. That's the average depth. But the average elevation of land is only 835 meters. The deepest point in the ocean is 11,022 meters. But the tallest point is Mount Everest, which is Mount Everest, is only 8,849 meters, give or take a few meters here and there. Okay. The mid-oceanic ridge is 64,000 kilometers long, 4 times longer than all the mountain ranges on the land combined. This mid-oceanic ridge is the one that girdles around, that goes around the Pacific almost. So this mid-oceanic ridge is 64,000 kilometers long, 4 times longer than all the mountain ranges on land combined, and it's over 2,000 kilometers wide. So it's the biggest mountain range on Earth, which is under the sea. 96.5% of all the water on the Earth is ocean. Of course, the other is also still connected, the rivers and lakes, etc. They're all interconnected and eventually connected with the ocean. But 96.5% of all the water is on the Earth is ocean. Ice on land is 2%. Groundwater is 1%. Rivers and lakes 0.2%. Water in the atmosphere 0.1%. So that's the level of water that the ocean has. Obviously, water everywhere, not a drop to drink, we say. But that water has got a significant contribution to how we live and how it supports life, how the planet supports life, and how we live, and how it manages our climate system, and so on and so forth. Now, in about the early 80s, I heard this phrase VUCA, V-U-C-A. Basically, it said it was about the world we live in. And it says we live in the world which is volatile, which is characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, around the same time I got married, and that can be said about marriage too, but that's a different story. But then we want to change that VUCA world, this uncertain world, and in fact, ocean is one of the most fantastic examples of VUCA world. The ocean is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I'll come to each one of those as we go further. But we want to slowly change that VUCA into a different VUCA by having a vision to learn more about the ocean, understanding the ocean, clarity of our knowledge about the ocean, and agility about doing things that can ameliorate the problems that ocean is facing. So we have to change this uncertain VUCA into some kind of a certain or a beneficial, we have to change that vicious circle, as it were, to a virtuous circle, as it were. And I've got another slide here. I call it ABCD of challenges. You can also have E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and so on. But ABCD of challenges, every challenge leads to opportunities. Elizabeth used to always say that challenges lead to opportunities. So the aim is, as I said, it's equity, justice, and peace. That's what is our aim. We want to achieve peace in the end through equity and justice. But to reach that, we have to balance the people, planet, and prosperity or profit, whatever you like to call that. So we have to balance this three-legged stool of environment, society, and economics. So that's what we want to do. We want to do a balancing act of people, planet, and prosperity. And this will help us combat death, disease, and destruction. And I'll come to that a little bit later in my talk, how we can do that. And the dividend. Of course, we are democratic countries. The CIRDAP countries, which Hurain mentioned, are predominantly democratic countries. We want all countries to be democratic, and we want all countries to be truly democratic. So that will give us dividend in terms of the democratic dividend, the demographic dividend. In fact, India, Bangladesh, we are all young countries. We have got a huge number of young populations. 65% of people in India are under the age of 35. So that's a demographic dividend, people power, and demand. Because as the population is getting more prosperous, there's greater and greater demand for goods and services. And the more goods and services we can get, the more dividend we can achieve. And all of this has connections with the ocean. Ocean, as I say on my Twitter handle, I say ocean is our final frontier. It's our final frontier, and it's our last hope. And that's very true. So I'll then come back to the second part of my talk, which I call as 3 approaches. Now, these 3 approaches are my own personal approaches that I have adopted as I said, throughout my life, but more so after 2002. So the first approach is advice, what I call as advice, giving advice, as it were, if people will listen to me. So the first advice comes about 22 years ago, after the death of Elizabeth Mann Borghese, my guru, my friend and philosopher. For 20 years, I knew her from 1982 until 2002. And my father, they both died within 10 days of each other. Elizabeth died on the 8th of February. My father died on the 18th of February. And my father was a great public speaker. He was a wise man. He was a very learned man, and he was a great speaker. And Elizabeth had this fantastic philosophy about the ocean. So I wanted to combine Elizabeth's philosophy and my father's oratory through a lecture circuit. So I was wondering how to get about doing that. So in December 2002, we were all gathered at the IOC of UNESCO, Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of the UNESCO in Paris, and to pay tributes to Elizabeth Mann Borghese. And that time I did my spiel, which was then later on published, a shorter version of my spiel, which was later published as the obituary in 2004 in the Ocean Yearbook. And after I came and sat down, I wrote on the back of the sort of invitation card 7 points. And I started with those 7 points. And there was a lady sitting next to me, Alice Newton, who is a professor. And she was sitting next to me, and I showed it to Alice. And I said, if I develop a course on these 7 points, will it have any traction? And she said, she gave me a challenge. This was December 2002, mind you. And she said, in end of March, early April, in the University of Algarve, I'm going to start a new program on ocean policy. And if you can do a 10-session course, you're on. And I actually prepared the notes through the Christmas, through the period, and delivered the first of my, what you call as a master class in ocean and environmental governance. And that's how it was born. The title is stolen from 7 Pillars of Wisdom, a book by the eminent, the famous soldier and a diplomat and a great man all along, Colonel T. Lawrence. And he wrote a book called The 7 Pillars of Wisdom, which I have in my library, in my bookshelves. But it's one of those immensely unreadable books. But I just decided to take the title. There are many talks like that. There are many books like that. There's another very unreadable book by Stephen Hawking, as most of you will probably know, Brief History of Time. Again, nobody's read it cover to cover in one sitting, but it's sort of gives you a great lot of information and wisdom as you go through it over time. My clients have been educational and research institutions, intergovernmental organizations, and non-governmental organizations. And I say that I will talk to anyone who will listen to me. I'll also talk to anyone who even doesn't listen to me, but I'll do my talking anyway. And advice is has been for a long time, for decades now, has been my vehicle for earning a living. So that's how I earn a living, and I go. So second bit of approach, the second approach, again, my personal approach is advocacy. I talk about stuff, obviously I've said that, but I talk about things that I'm concerned about other than just ocean and environmental governance. And one of my hobby horses, as it were, or a very sort of important issue that is always in my head, is the idea of it's our moral duty to give. At an individual level, Peter Singer is a great example. Peter Singer is an environmentalist and a professor at Princeton University. He's an Australian environmentalist, currently, I think, at Princeton University. And he is renowned because he gives 40% of all his income to good causes. So he's a professor, so he's not a rich man by any standards, any current standards, but he gives 40% of his income, and that's individual giving at individual level. I will talk more about this later. But at national and international level, a voluntary and yet unfulfilled commitment of 0.7% of GDP. This was made by OECD countries. OECD is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They said that they will give overseas development assistance, ODA, of 0.7% of their GDP, and they made that commitment in 1970. To date, most of the OECD countries have not fulfilled that. Some of them have more than fulfilled that. The Scandinavian countries in particular, they have gone almost to 1%. But the US, which is the biggest donor in the world in terms of volume, is only 0.1%. So if they actually gave 0.7% of their GDP, this would work out 400 billion annually. Now, this compares with another unfulfilled 100 billion annual climate commitment made at Copenhagen at the climate summit in 2009. And I was there. It was started off as Copenhagen, and some people said Hopenhagen, and then eventually they said Brokenhaven, and that's what the conference was. But there it was agreed that they would give, OECD countries again, would give 100 billion contribution to climate commitment. So together, actually, we're talking about $500 billion annually, and that's a lot of money. By contrast, NATO countries, which is the military alliance, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, similar membership. I'm not saying exactly the same membership as OECD countries, but similar membership. The NATO countries spend an average of 2.5% of their GDP on defense, servicing SDGs, servicing Sustainable Development Goals, dealing with death, disease, and destruction, natural disaster mitigation, is what all these things, all these $500 billion can be used year after year. And that's what I was trying to say when I said how we deal with death, disease, and destruction. This is how we can do it. The other one of my things which is very close to my heart is universal basic income. But that's a different story, but that's another issue I'm very passionate about. Many of you probably know about it. And it's a very important thing to bring again that equity, equity and justice is very important. And that is very important from that point of view, the whole idea of universal basic income. My third approach is action. What do I do? Do I walk the talk? So this is where I give to good causes. I'm not Peter Singer. I've not managed to go anywhere near him, but I have consistently given 10% of my gross income since 2002. This is when I started my ocean and environmental governance, my seven pillars of ocean and environmental governance. We can all help to alleviate poverty, hunger, lack of education, shortage of water, lack of sanitation, provision of healthcare. Small amounts go a very long way. You don't have to think you have to be Bill Gates or Warren Buffett to give out your money. Small amounts of money go a long way. Contribute through volunteering. In fact, I went to Malaysia not too long ago, and all over there there were hoardings, and they said, if God, and I don't believe in God, but if God raises your standard of living, if God gives you a lot of money, don't raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving, and that is there all over in Malaysia, and I was touched with that. I thought that's a fantastic slogan. So if your net worth in India, I'm talking about, if your net worth is just $60,000, which is 45 lakh rupees, you are in the top 1% in India. And if you have $300,000, that is 2.25 crores, that puts you in the top 0.1% richest in India. So there are a lot of people that come in that category, and there's a little bit each one of them can do. There's a famous Latin American saying. It says, to those that hunger, give bread. To those that have bread, give the hunger for justice. And again, that's the main thing. When people are hungry, they cannot think of justice, poetry, and prose and art and architecture and ocean governance and environmental governance. No, they are thinking about where is their next day's bread and butter going to come from. But once they have the bread and butter, they must have this hunger for justice. And that's why I say that each one of us has to be agent of bringing about that change. So those are my three approaches. Now, I come to the 5 issues. The first issue is, why are we where we are? It is because of wants, the greeds, basically. Mahatma Gandhi famously said that there is enough in the world for the need of everybody, but not enough in the world for the greed of anybody. So nothing is ever any good for us until we can cut, dig, or kill. Think about it. Nothing is good for us. Unless we cut the tree, it's not good for us. Unless we dig the earth, the minerals, we get out the minerals are no good for us unless we dig them out, or we kill the animals. So unless we cut, dig, or kill, nothing is ever any good for us, So we must cut, dig, and kill. That's what we've done. But animals also do it. Animals also cut, dig, and kill. But they don't cut and dig and kill for the next generation or for tomorrow or for the next year and so on. We are the only animal that does that we say, okay, I want one tree, I want one animal to eat, or I want to get this bit of land or something, but we are not satisfied with that. So that's the greed bit there. But we added on top of that to cut, dig, and kill, which all the animals do, and we are animals and we also do it. We added to it burn. Animals don't burn. We are the only animal that burns. And we added burn, and that burn has become an addiction with us. Our addiction to fossil fuel means that we have gone up from 283 parts per million of CO2 in 1800 to 313 in 1955, the year I was born. So in 155 years, there was a rise of 30 parts per million of CO2. Now, I was born in the year 313, I say, because that's what it was in 313, okay, in 1955. But within my lifetime, I'm 68 years old now, and within my lifetime, that number has gone up to 425. Why? Because of our incessant and addiction to burning fossil fuels. In addition to other pollutants in form of fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals, heavy metals, industrial and municipal waste, plastics, etc. All of these mean that humans have interfered inexorably with biogeochemical processes and biogeochemical ocean fluxes. That's what we have done. Yeah, there's no second way. There's no two ways about it. As a result of that, we have become a lawless society. We are a lawless society to some extent. Sometimes you hear things happening here and there. In that sense, we are lawless. But this lawless is even more existential. It's more worrying. We are a lawless society in the sense that we become landless. Our land has become less productive because of fertilizers, because of excessive use of fertilizers, pesticides, and chemicals, and the disruption of the nitrogen cycle. We become airless. We can't breathe the air. In many cities in India, it is in Delhi, 20-year-old children or people, when they go to get themselves examined, they find out that they have lungs of a 20-year smoker, chain smoker, 20-year chain smoker. They haven't smoked a cigarette in their life, but this is the level of pollution. And waterless, our water has become undrinkable. So that's the first issue. The second issue, I was talking about existential issues. What are the existential issues? When COVID came a couple of years ago, we thought that was an existential issue, but it was here today and gone tomorrow. So I would compare that COVID to a marble. All things that we play with, the little marbles. Climate change can be compared to a tennis ball, much bigger. Disruption of nitrogen cycle that I talked to you a little bit earlier, that can be compared to a baseball, much bigger. But the loss of biological diversity is like a football. And let me just give you one example. Of all the mammals rather, living on the earth, 60% are farm animals. 60% of all animals are farm animals. 36% are us human beings. So that is 96%. Only 4% animals are left in the wild. So all your tigers and cheetahs and elephants and zebras and giraffes and all of those, they're only 4%. Yeah. So imagine the devastating amount of damage to biodiversity that we've done. Stern review, Kate Roberts' book Donut Economics, and Dasgupta review are the three sort of eminent books I would like to recommend to you to read. Stern review was done by my professor at LSE, Lord Stern, Nick Stern, Economics of Climate Change, he called it, published in 2006. Kate Roberts talks of donut economics. She talks of planetary boundaries and stuff like that, and how we have exceeded some of the planetary boundaries quite considerably. And the Dasgupta review is about the last point that I mentioned about the loss of biological diversity and the economics of biological diversity. The third issue is, why is the ocean significant for our survival? Like I said, the Pacific alone is bigger than the surface of Mars and can accommodate all 7 continents. Only about 5% of the ocean has been explored and mapped. So that's a big problem. We know Roger Revelle, in a tongue-in-cheek way, said that we know more about the backside of the moon than the bottom of the ocean. And the ocean, inter alia, among others, it absorbs 25% of carbon dioxide, more actually maybe, generates 50 to 80% of oxygen. So at least every second breath that we take is thanks to the ocean. It is 70% of the Earth's surface, we said that, receives 80% of land-based pollution, more than that maybe, absorbs 90% of excess heat from emissions from all our activities on Earth, including burning of the fossil fuels, transportation, and so on, carries 95% of world trade, mind you, by tonnage. Goods that go by sea, 95% of world trade. And that's actually, there's another worrying point there, because if 95% of goods are going by the ocean, and as you probably know, that maritime slavery is quite rampant. So if that is the case, almost everything that we touch, this chair, this jacket, this bow tie, this shirt, everything has probably been touched by slaves, either in their raw form or their finished goods forms. So that's again another thing to think about. And Avni, in fact, did his PhD at University of Wales in Cardiff, and they had experts on maritime slavery in that place. So he would probably know one or two things about it. Contains 97% of the water, we said that, and offers 99% of the space, the living space, the biosphere. But more importantly, and relevant to what we're doing right now, the so-called cloud, which we talk about, when we talk of storage and communication of data and stuff like that, the so-called cloud is actually in the ocean, because almost 99% communication cables are laid under the ocean. So that's how ocean is significant for our survival. Now, where in nature can we find simple solutions? And Greta Thunberg says, the solutions are staring at us in our face. The solutions are staring at us in our face. And what is the solution? The solution is trillions of new trees, TNT. I was a mining engineer, and we used to use TNT as an explosive. TNT is an explosive, trinitrotoluene. So we want an explosion of trees. Of course, we should always have indigenous trees, but I always say that any tree is better than no tree. And the best tree is the one that you plant, nurture, and make it grow, see it grow. So trees is the best solution that we can provide for the amelioration of environmental degradation of the planet in many, many, many sorts of ways. Water conservation, soil conservation, air purification, you name it. That law list I talked about, land, air, and water. Trees, 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 that's the solution. My mother has got a small plot of land where I live in India, in Pune. It's a tiny plot of land, just about 3,500 to 4,000 square feet. But it's wooded with all sorts of fruiting and flowering trees. And when anybody comes to our place, they say our place is 5 degrees cooler. That microclimate that even that small plot of land has created for our house. So similarly, in the sea, mangroves, seagrass, and corals, they are our triple insurance against the imminent climate catastrophe. So the more we do it, and Bangladesh is doing very good work in this, in plantation of mangroves, seagrass and corals protection. We also found out that corals can be rejuvenated. They don't die. They can be brought back to life again. So all those things are extremely important. People will say, oh, but we don't have water, and how can we plant trees? All that is true to some extent. But now there's this great green wall initiative coming just along the Sahara Desert. That's going from Dakar to Djibouti. Great Green Wall initiative. And they're planting trees there. And the trees are now surviving and growing. And as the trees are growing, they are attracting water. So the rains are coming. So all these things, this is like, the cutting of the trees is a vicious circle. Planting the trees is virtuous circle. I have a friend in Pune from IIT Kanpur, highly educated, PhD man, fantastic career. He chucked it all about 10 years ago and started this 14trees.org. And he has converted almost 1,400 acres of area, which didn't grow even a blade of grass, into a veritable jungle of veritable forest of fruiting trees, flowering trees, and farming activities in a matter of 10 years. And first 5 years of that were just wasted, just experimenting and trying to find out what works and what doesn't work. He didn't have any water either. Now he has water, he has trees, and he has fertile land. All of that thanks to trees. And finally, the final issue is, how must our narratives change? Our narratives must change. Why? Our first narrative was the ocean is too big to fail. So we thought the ocean is so big. As I said, the ocean is big, seriously big. So the ocean is so big, we can do whatever to it. We can take as much fish as we want. We can put as many pollutants in it as we do, and it will still be fine. But that's not true. The ocean is failing. The ocean is not absorbing as much carbon dioxide as it should. The ocean is not absorbing as much heat as it should. There's ocean, the ocean currents are changing. So all that is happening. The ocean is warming. So the ocean is not too big to fail. So that narrative has to change. So then the next narrative came, and the next narrative was the ocean is too big to fix. Oh, the damage is done now. What can we do? Throw up your hands in air and say, okay, or put your head bury your head in sand, and say the ocean is too big to fix. Give up. No, that's not a good narrative either. The correct narrative is the ocean is too big to ignore, and we ignore it only at our own peril. So that's the important message in terms of our narratives, how the narratives have to change. So now I come to solutions, and the solutions are my 7 pillars of wisdom, which I call 7 pillars of ocean and environmental governance. So first one is science and technology. Everything has got to be based on robust science. We cannot be talking about mumbo jumbo. Mumbo jumbo is out and has got to be completely out. Okay, it's all got to be science and technology. Science, according to me, is about seeking and acquiring knowledge, and technology is about wisdom. Nuclear science is knowledge. Nuclear technology is wisdom. So wisdom both ways, cuts both ways. You can make nuclear weapons. You can make nuclear treatment. I just had a little cancer episode last year, and one of the possible treatments for me was radioisotopes. So you can have positive things. You can have nuclear energy, which I'm a great proponent of, contrary to what you may believe. I'm an environmentalist, but I think, and that's an aside actually, but I think that nuclear is a golden bridge between our fossil past and our renewable future. So nuclear technology can be positive and negative. It's a double-edged sword. All technology, all sciences lead to technology that are double-edged swords. It creates problems, but also provides solutions. Science, technology creates problems, but it is the technology that will find solutions. Science is about imagination. Einstein himself said that knowledge is limited, but imagination is unlimited. That's what it has to be. And dreams. D.H. Lawrence talked of dreams, not T. Lawrence, not Colonel T. Lawrence, but the very but the great author, David Lawrence. And he talks of dreams, and he says that dreams, not when you dream when you're awake, when you're asleep, but dreams that you dream when you're awake, because then you will work hard to fulfill your dreams and achieve your dreams. The World Intellectual Property Organization has a motto, and says, imagine, think, create. So this imagine is that, blue sky thinking. And then you come to thinking, how about making this real? And then you make something, you create something. And this is the process of science and technology. Elizabeth Mann Borghese, my guru, used to often say that utopians of today are realists of tomorrow. Realists of today are dead tomorrow. So you have to be a utopian. You have to be imaginative in your thinking. You have to constantly imagine for better things, better life, better people, so on. Second solution, geopolitical economy. Whose resources and who benefits, right? You can see this all over the world. The resource-rich countries are not necessarily rich. The resource-poor countries are not necessarily poor. You can see the reason for it yourself. What happens? What happens to the finished product? What happens to who gives you the raw material? Who makes the finished products? Who makes the profits? Carbon trail, going from production to consumption to waste recycling and residue. There's a carbon trail in everything. And that's, again, happening mostly in the poorer countries. The workshops of the world, the so-called workshops of the world. Privatization of profits and socialization of costs. That cannot go on forever. You cannot say that I'm a big banker and I made a big loss, so bail me out. But I'm a small farmer and I'm facing drought, and I need to commit. I have to commit suicide or find some other ways of surviving. You can't have this dual policy. Privatization of profits and socialization of costs must be avoided at all costs. Transboundary nature of impacts is increasingly evident. Pollution, disaster, epidemics are all of global proportions now. Nothing stops in one country or one region. It just goes everywhere. You have plenty of examples of this in the last 20, 25 years. Herman Daly, a famous World Bank economist, said that the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment, not the other way around, not the reverse. The third solution, and this is very important, institutions and organizations. CIRDAP is also an organization, an intergovernmental organization. So, but what we want is democratic institutions. We want votes, we want voting. In fact, we would like consensus, we would like consensus, but at best, at worst, it should be voting and not veto. Not one country decides, no, what some other country is doing is fine, and then just veto it and something like that. This happens all the time in our polity, and that's not right. The United Nations and EU are examples of these institutions at global level and regional level. There are many others. And we want to try and have more of consensus, more of voting maybe, and less of vetoing. Winston Churchill very famously said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all the others we have tried. So democracy has got its own problems, but it is still the best of all the other ones we have tried. Moving out of file, as I talk in terms of the government bureaucratic file. So you have to move out of bureaucracy and moving into life, governance. Less government and more governance has got to be the motto of all organizations. And the beauty of democracy, what is so great about democracy, is that it somehow creates an ecosystem of checks and balances. At least it ought to. A good economy, a good democracy should create an ecosystem of checks and balances, not doing stuff because I feel it right or somebody feels it right, not having a bulldozer kind of attitude towards stuff. The fourth solution, very important again, legislation and implementation. Don't legislate what you can't implement. That's the golden rule of what we do. Continuous development, and this is extremely important. Continuous development, each one of these phrases, each one of these words are extremely crucial. Continuous development, periodic review, and uniform application of the rule of law. Old laws must be discarded. New laws must be created. Continuous development of law must take place. Environmental law, if I must tell you, is one of the fastest. International environmental law and in fact international law of the sea are both one of the fastest growing fields of international law today. Peremptory norms, what we call in legal terms in Latin as jus cogens. Pollution is a crime against environment, just as genocide is a crime against humanity. So that has gone into now the environmental law. Yeah. So peremptory norms, norms against which we do not discuss or debate. Exhortative principles. Do the right thing because it is the right thing to do, not because it makes you more money, not because it makes you more popular, not because it makes you win another election. No, do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. Exhortative principles. Shift from crime and punishment, from polluter pays principle, which was the old principle, or which is still there, sic utere tuo, the Latin phrase for that, pollution pays principle, polluter pays principle, to preventing the crime to be committed in the first place by using what is known as the precautionary principle, primum non nocere. First commit no harm, first do no harm. Doctors, when they graduate, they take a Hippocratic oath, and that is this. This is about primum non nocere. First, do no harm. So that's got to be applicable in environmental and ocean issues. And that will make us go from being lawless to becoming lawful. Fifth solution, role of civil society. What is civil society? We are all part of civil society. Stakeholders, actually United Nations defines stakeholders. There's a long list of provided by the Agenda 21. And at the top of it is women and youth. Why? Because women are 50% of the world and youth will reside in that world in the future. Not me, but the youth will reside in that world in the future. So women and youth must be given the top priority when we talk of the stakeholders. We all talk of rights, we talk of my rights, but what about my responsibility as a citizen? Each one of us has got to be a responsible citizen. We talk of corporate social responsibility. What about individual social responsibility? Just as I talked about giving, big companies, big philanthropists giving money is all good. What about you and I? Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration of Agenda 21 of United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in 1992, it says that environmental issues are best handled by participation of all concerned citizens, and it includes women and children. Financial initiatives. Obviously, money makes the world go round. Yeah. So how do you get the money to do the right things the way you want to do? Elizabeth Mann Borghese, she was a great philosopher, but she was also very, very good at raising funds. So you have got to be very good at raising funds. And how you will raise funds only when you have a compelling argument to make to the donor. And that's what she was very good at. So if you can make a compelling argument to the donor that this is the money and this is what is going to happen, and show them the results of that, that's when it's going to happen. That's when you're going to get money. So how do you get the money to do the right things that you want to do? Do the right thing because it is the right thing to do, but you need money to do that. Public-private partnership, private financial initiatives, foreign direct investment. These are at different levels. It can be governments, it could be corporate bodies, it could be non-governmental organization, it could be philanthropic organizations, so on and so forth, any number of them. The World Bank Group has got many bodies to, where you can get money from. There are regional development banks at African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and so on. In fact, the World Bank itself is, as you probably know, is known as the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the World Bank Group, the main body. Of course, then there's IDA, the International Development Association, the International Finance Association, the MIGA, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Association, and so on. A good friend of mine, he used to say very often, environmentalist, used to say, enterprises do stuff to make money. Environmentalists need money to do stuff. Yeah. And that's very important. If you want to do good things, you need money to do good things. And you have to be, able to make that compelling argument in order to get the money to do the good things that you want to do. And finally, and most importantly for me, the seventh solution is education and awareness. I have been an academic all my life, right from the time I graduated. Almost immediately after I graduated, I got into academics, and I have continued in academics with a break of maybe 2 or 3 years in between, 4 years. Education and awareness is the most important thing according to me. As I said, science and technology has to be foundation of everything. Education and awareness will create that foundation. It is my central pillar. I say among the audience today, each one of us belongs to at least one of the 7 pillars. Each one of us belongs to at least one pillar. And we can adopt it as our central pillar. We can adopt whatever. You might be a politician, you might be an economist, you might be a scientist, you might be working for an international intergovernmental organization, you might be a lawyer. Yeah, each one of us has got a pet pillar. Adopt that as your pillar and let these other pillars work around it. Education, both formal and informal. Elizabeth actually gave a book to Sumedh, my son, when he was about 8 years old. She wrote a book called Chairworm and Super Shark. This was a cartoon book, very beautifully illustrated. And she gave it to my son at the age of 8. And this was, in fact, translated by my father into Marathi shortly before he died. So I have got these 3 generations of connection with Elizabeth Mann-Borghese. So I once asked her, why 8? She said from the age of 8 to 80. I once asked her, and this was early on actually, and she says 8 is when little animals become human beings. When you are born, we are animals. But as we get older, as we become, she says, according to her, as you become 8, you become human being. And I said, then why 80? And she was in those days, she was in her early 60s sort of. And she said, because I'm 60, I feel young. And I will continue to feel as young as long as I live. But when I look at people who are 20 years older than me, I think of them as old. So that was her logic of 8 to 80. I would say, whatever, 8 to 100 or whatever that be. I'm 68, so maybe 8 to 90 now or something. My mother is 92 actually. She's much more enthusiastic and energetic and active than I probably am. In or mid-career training, we call it continuing professional development or continuous professional development or lifelong learning. Every professional needs to be trained. Nobody can say that I know my stuff now and I can, put my feet up. No, things are changing all the time. So professionals need to be trained, especially politicians need to be trained. Politicians they need to be changed also, but they also need to be trained. Facilitation of stakeholder dialogues. That's what I used to do a lot. So bringing together diverse people with completely diverse views who won't even like to be seen sitting around the same table. People won't like to be photographed sitting together because they'll say, oh, what are you doing with that chap? That kind of people. Bring them together and have dialogues to, bring common points. Public speaking engagements like the one I'm doing now. Education is a gift that does not diminish on giving. Indeed, it is a gift that keeps growing. Because as I teach, as I lecture, I think that, oh, today I didn't do so well. or my students ask me a question and I can't answer it, or somebody who's listening to me ask a question or a query and I can't answer it, I go back and read and I learn. So I'm learning all the time and I'm giving away all the time. So it doesn't reduce. Baba Diou, a Senegalese engineer who came to India for a conference, he said, in his conference, he said, in the end, we will protect only what we love only what we understand, and understand only what we are taught. So there's this great connection between what you love, what you protect rather. So there's a great connection between protection and preservation and education. So that's my 7 pillars of ocean and environmental governance, which is my 7 solutions. So finally, I just have a few thoughts. You can't always get what you want. This is Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones and his famous song. He says, you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometime you will find you get what you need. He's rephrasing Mahatma Gandhi. So pick your hero. Pick Mahatma or Mick. Doesn't matter who's your hero, but do the right thing. So need and greed he's talking about there. My website says our whole thinking and narratives, like I've discussed earlier, our whole thinking and our narratives must change. And the change must come from within. And each one of us has got to be that agent of change. I've said, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I always give this example of the pin diagram. It's about positions that we take as human beings, which are often intransigent. We are always at loggerheads with each other. I am the best. I'm the greatest. I'm the God's gift to mankind. You know, everybody thinks so, but that's not true. The other person also as important as you are. Issues are more common and needs are almost the same. Indira Gandhi used to talk of roti, kapda, and makan. Roti is the Indian word for bread. Kapda is the Indian word for clothing. And makan is the Indian word for housing. Food, clothing, and shelter. Everybody needs, whether you're a pauper or a billionaire. Everybody needs it. And that's what the need is. Want, yes, there's unlimited wants, but needs are basic needs. And I describe this because we're talking about the ocean. I describe the pin diagram as an oceanic atoll. The oceanic atoll only shows up a little bit on the surface of the earth, on the surface of the ocean. And that's the position. So if you take many oceanic atolls next to each other, you'll see everybody taking that position, which is quite apart from each other. If you go a little bit deeper into the ocean, you'll see that they're almost coming together, the atolls. Yeah? So there are issues. And the needs are the foundation of those atolls, which are all the same. Roti, kapda, and makan. Food, clothing, and shelter. The other important thing is always, whatever you do, is the honesty of purpose and clarity of purpose. I want to tell you a little story. I've got 1 or 2 slides to go. And this story is called The Young Boy, the Beach, and the Starfish. So there's a young boy. He's walking on a hot day on a beach. And the beach is strewn with starfish. And all he's doing is bending down, picking up one starfish and throwing it into the sea. And he bends down again and picks up another one and throws it into the sea. An old man is passing by. And he says, young man, what are you doing? And he said, I am saving the starfish. He said, there are millions of starfish strewed around the beaches of the world. How many are you going to save? How many are you going to save? And he picked up one more and threw it into the sea and said, I saved that one. And that's the approach we have to take. Each one of us has got to keep on chipping at things. In Hindi, we use the phrase, lage raho munna bhai, which means, keep at it, keep chipping at it. Keep chipping. In English, we say, keep chipping at it. Top 10 solutions to reverse climate change. These are not my solutions, but these I've just found from searching various, literature. So refrigerant management. It is a fact of life. Things are going to get hotter and hotter. Already in India, there are many places that are going above 50 degrees, 52 degrees, that sort of temperatures. So we have to protect our food, we have to have refrigerants. We have to sit in air-conditioned places. Otherwise, we won't be able to survive, you know. But refrigerant management brings me to a story, actually, a quick story. The person who used Freon as a refrigerant and lead as a lubricant in automobile oil, automobile fuel, was one and the same person. Yeah. And he was hailed as a great genius of his time. But as times changed, his Wikipedia entry says that he damaged, he single-handedly caused more damage to the environment than any other organism, you know. Anyway, wind turbines. But wind turbines onshore, more onshore wind turbines are more helpful than the offshore wind turbines. Reduced food waste. I'm told that we waste a huge amount of food from the farm to the shop and from the farm to the fork. Huge amount of food waste. Even when we bring the food in at home, we throw away a lot of it. So reducing food waste. Adoption of plant-rich diet. Tropical, 60% of all mammals are farmed animals, remember? That's why adoption of plant-rich diet. Tropical forest restoration, Greta Thunberg, you know, solution is staring you in your face. Educating girls, women, you know, educating girls, family planning, pure children, solar farms, silvopasture, and rooftops solar. These are some top solutions for climate change. So let me end by saying it is not the end of the problem, but the solutions must begin somewhere. So my solution has been through my 3 approaches and my 7 solutions. Each one of us can find their own solutions and try to make them as effective as possible. You know, clarity of purpose, honesty of purpose, all those things are going to help you achieve what you want to achieve. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I'm very happy to take questions. My logo is there. My contact details are there. My email is sunil@oceangovernance.org. And my phone number is there on WhatsApp and FaceTime. So please feel free to contact me. And we'll have some time for questions, I hope. And I'll also at this point stop sharing my screen if that is okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive lecture. 77 minutes that you have provided. We normally take 90 minutes. So you have only 13 minutes question and answer, but we could extend it because it's a late after hours working. We can extend some period of time. So now I'd like to ask whether Huren, would you like to conduct the Q&A or would you like me to do it?
So if you can do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So I first like to open the floor to our respected audience. Please. I think you have half an hour, not only 13 minutes. Half an hour for Q&A, please.
Very kind, very kind. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any questions, please? Before I ask question, I have some questions.
So there's a comment in chat box from Professor Wangpopo.
Okay, please read it.
Thank you for the lecture. Based on your experience on oceans, what are the 3 most important specific projects we must do in the future to preserve our precious ocean for future generations? Oh, actually, it's a question from Professor Wangpopo, Singapore.
Okay. The first, this is to preserve and protect our ocean. So the first one to my mind is the 3 that I mentioned to you earlier. Okay. I said that mangroves, seagrass, and corals, they are our triple insurance against climate change. Okay. So that is number one. The second, and this is a significant problem now. It used to be plastic fantastic, but now it has become plastic drastic, as many of you would probably agree. So plastic pollution, and experts say that it won't be very long before there might be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Yeah. So plastic pollution. So that's my second point. And the third point, in general, because the main culprit is what? The main culprit is fossil fuel, because fossil fuel is the one. So that should be in fact on the top, number one. So fossil fuel, phasing out fossil fuels and moving to renewables. And like I said, it can be done through this golden bridge of nuclear. So fossil fuels have to be phased out, and that will reduce the CO2. That will rejuvenate the ocean. Why? Because that will improve the capacity of the ocean to absorb CO2. That will reduce the warming of the ocean. That will stop killing the corals and the seagrass and the mangroves and so on. So I think those are my three top solutions to ameliorate the damage that we are causing to the ocean. And this has got to be done now, yesterday. This has got to be done yesterday, and it's got to be done on a war footing.
I'd like to ask Professor Wong Popo whether you're satisfied with the answers.
Thank you very much for your answer, because your lecture is actually very interesting.
That's very kind of you.
Very interesting, except for one thing which you may or may not know. You talk about the oceans like as an entity, and today is Ocean Day, okay? We know what it is. I think all the problems you mentioned is in there. Ocean is a problem. On the other hand, you also talk about all the other problems of the world, which you all know. So I find it very difficult to connect the first point you make and the second point you make about all the problems of humanity, and say where. That's why I asked this question. Whether anything, yes, go ahead. Let me finish. Whether you see between those two ends, there is a connection. That's why I asked this question, to pick your brains, actually. Yeah. The only thing now, you have given me an answer, also make me think, there is a lot of controversy on what you call nuclear power, even in Singapore, we are thinking of going nuclear, but the country is too small. Nuclear is, even in Finland, where they use a lot of nuclear, find is the waste. How do you take away the waste? So I am more in terms of renewable energy, because sun shines out. Wind is also good. You mentioned that it's not good on the land. Well, they have to decide. But there's a lot of other things. I think at the end of the day, we may have to go back to the ocean and look very carefully. There's still a tidal power, all sorts of other things which have not yet discovered. And as you say, we only know 5% of the ocean in terms of knowledge. There's another 95, which may provide. All you need is 10% of that 95 to provide some possible solution. And I think scientists have to work very, very hard. The future, I think there's still immense what you call scope for people to go into ocean or to specialize, the science of ocean, whatever you call it. Eventually, I see there are going to be more discipline dealing with ocean research, not just the soft kind of governance and so forth. What we need is a hard science. Every day I read a newspaper, new species of mammals, fish, and things are found in the oceans. You see, it's very, very interesting, you know, because I'm a coastal man. I don't go right into the ocean, but I find it extremely interesting. Thank you very much. Anyway, I think all this is just more. I don't think we have a solution yet. It's
Let me tell you the reason, Professor.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the reason why I have gone around, talking about the world problems. And Avni will probably have a comment to make at the end of it. The reason I have used that is the whole motto that with which I started, which Hurain mentioned, that I came under the tutelage of Elizabeth Mann Borghese, and she used the phrase "pacem in maribus." Yeah, pacem in maribus means peace in the ocean. She borrowed from the Pope's encyclical Pacem in Terra, which is peace on the earth, and she borrowed from that, and she made Pacem in Maribus the logo for International Ocean Institute. Now that's my upbringing. So now Pacem in Maribus, how do you achieve Pacem in Maribus? Which is why my 6 circles. My 6 circles are about people, planet, and profit or prosperity. People, planet, and prosperity. And then that is what is going to lead to equity and justice. If we balance those that three-legged stool of people, planet, and prosperity, that is what is going to lead to, equity and justice, and eventually that is going to lead to peace. So Pacem in Maribus is going to be achieved not just by focusing on the nitty-gritty issues of the ocean, but the broader issues, the broader issues. Mahatma Gandhi was asked, why was the, let me just take just a minute. Mahatma Gandhi was asked, what is peace? And Mahatma Gandhi very famously said, peace is not mere absence of war. Peace is not mere absence of war. There are other, other sort of contributors to it. And the other contributors are social and economic, which is why the League of Nations failed, because they were trying to achieve peace. They could not. The Second World War came. But when the United Nations came, they established the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Commission. But again, they were not complete, because they had not a clue about the environment in 1945, when the United Nations was formed. So ECOSOCs were formed, but nothing about the environment until 1972, the United Nations Conference on Human Environment. So Mahatma Gandhi said about the determinants of peace are not just absence of war, but the determinant of peace is absence of poverty, absence of basically social and economic inputs, presence of that. And now we know that even social and economic is not enough, because environmental is so much more important. So that is the reason I have gone very broad, although I call my talk today One Ocean, 3 Approaches, 5 Issues and 7 Solutions. The reason the talk is broad, because I want to convey this message that it is not just looking at smaller issues, for example, plastic pollution or pollution in general, or you have to look at it in a holistic point of view. And that's why I did that. So thank you very much, but I take your point, Professor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also I agree with you. It's just that connection, just like as you say, for example, you talk about climate change. I will put it the other way around. I'm a climate change man. I would say climate change is everything. You know what I mean? Because climate change will affect ocean, climate change will affect mankind, climate change will affect everything, atmosphere. The biggest problem facing us is not just ocean. I think it's climate change itself. Well, anyway, everybody has his own opinion. I think we better go on to the next question. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. I think
okay. Any question or comments, please?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Thank you.
Okay, please introduce yourself also. Thank you.
Sir, I am Captain K.K. Agnihotri from National Maritime Foundation, New Delhi, India. And I have been working in collaboration with Dr. Sunil Shastri for some time now. Of course, our fields are a little different within the issue of maritime domain. Notwithstanding, my question is, sir, you spoke that for doing the environmental stuff, one requires a lot of resources, finances, and there is a general reluctance on the part of the people who have finances.
I think your internet is dropped, but I get your question. How do you get it? You know, how do you get it? I just want to give a very important example from, okay, we just had elections in India, and I was actually quite, I'm an outside observer. I'm a UK national and I cannot even vote in India. But as an Indian, I observed from the outside, and I thought that not a single political party, and this is not, I don't want to say one party is better or the other party is worse or anything like that, but not a single party or not a single political candidate who stood for the election had anything to say about the environment. You know, now that situation has to change, and that can only come through people participation and people, you know, making large number of protests actually, because water shortages, you know, generally the heating of the earth, all of those things are affecting everybody. They're affecting the politicians also, but their vision or their let's say their vision is rather short, because they want to look for 5 years and then the next 5 years. You know, they want to make sure that they get re-elected to the next 5 years. So they want to focus on those issues. So we have to push our politicians. I think it falls on us. It falls on the citizens of the world to push their politicians to think more about the environment, to focus more about the environment, to focus more on the environmental issues and give funds, provide funds for that. I gave 2 examples on the international scenario of the overseas development assistance and also the Copenhagen commitment, you know, of 400 billion and 100 billion respectively annually. Now, those are the kind of things that we have to push for. I don't know whether that was your question, but because you had dropped out of the internet, I thought this might be addressing your question somewhat, if that was your question. Captain Agnihotri?
No, that is correct, sir.
Yeah.
I got the answer.
Yeah.
Basic is that whether the money will be utilized, and as a result, there is not enough money in the system. That was the question, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that argument of there's not having enough money in the system is quite tenuous in my view, because like I said, you have money to do stuff like, you know, bombing each other. You know, 2.5% of the world's GDP is spent on defense budget, but they can't spend 0.7 on overseas development assistance. So it is the you know, the priority. You know, what is it that we are giving priority to? That would be my thought, you know. But I mean, you know, this is my own thing. In fact, my whole talk is based on my own thinking. You know, it's not, of course, my own thinking in the sense of course, highly influenced by Elizabeth and Avni. In fact, I still remember Avni's first lecture he gave in 1982 or 1983. I still remember he talked about liner conferences, you know, and because he was with UNCTAD those days, and liner conferences were very important. And you know, I have learned along the way from so many people and so many luminaries, I should say, you know. And then I have found my own ideas, and I've just presented literally my ideas, you know, guised in their philosophy, as it were. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I think Avni wants to ask. Avni, you need to unmute.
Thank you very much, Sunil, for this, eye-opening lecture, and I know where you're coming from, since we both know Elizabeth and we lived with her, and I understand your passion and your faith in the human race, that
Absolutely.
can change things and it can influence. I wish I could share that optimism. But I just want to focus on your presentation. I felt there are two critical issues, which is not just the environment can deal with it, and an issue of environment, it goes to everything of the political, economic, and social. And that is, whether we like it or not, whether we are going to do about the environment, sea level rise is happening. It's a reality. And millions of people will have no homes, will have no way, no matter how much we're going to reduce, and we see the COPs and that.
Yeah.
Sea level rise is a reality. And to this day, we don't have a vulnerability index on all those islands, on all those coasts that are going to be, by the year 60, will be, that's one thing. And together with it, the greed is working on deep seabed mining.
Yeah.
They're going to dig up the seabed. And we're going to reduce, lost life that we never knew even it existed.
Yeah.
So we have two, well, as much as we can talk about the environment, we have two things that are going to happen. Money will drive deep seabed mining, and sea level will rise. And we have not have any sort of basket available.
Yeah. No,
Well, those were the two things that I thought.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely, Avni, you are spot on as always. I know actually that you said that you are not as optimistic as I am, but actually I know you are more optimistic than I am, because I've heard you speak so many times, and you are a epitome of optimism, but anyway, I will address your two points. One is about the sea level rise, and the other is about the ocean mining. But before I do that, you said you know where I come from, and again I had this one quick discussion with Elizabeth once, and I asked her, what is she, and she said, I'm a socialist humanist, or a humanist socialist, and she said it is out of fashion, but I am that. I am socialist humanist or humanist socialist, and that is exactly what I feel. I am a socialist humanist or a humanist socialist. So that is one, setting it one side. But the sea level rise is a existential issue for many coastal countries, and the key thing is about there's two things we can do, I mean, although albeit failingly, but still, one is, of course, to move our greed, and our main thing is our reduction of fossil fuel. So that has got to happen. The phasing of fossil fuel to renewables has to happen, and that will mitigate it to some extent. But the other thing is how to find, again, so this goes back to overseas development assistance. There was a meeting of the Mauritius government, if I'm not mistaken, not Mauritius, Maldives, the Maldives government, from where our friend Ajmat Jalil comes from, and they had an underwater meeting of their cabinet, and they demanded from the UN the homeland. They demanded, because they said that our islands are going to be submerged, because their average height of the island is only 1.5 meters above the sea level. So they said when the sea level rise happens, which is going to happen, they are going to lose their homeland. So they said that we should get homeland. They have applied actually to the United Nations to give them homeland in a place like Australia, Sri Lanka, or India. This is actually, there is a pending application with the United Nations. So the mitigation has got to be in the form of consideration of the others. There was a movie, Avni, if you remember, called The March, and the movie March was about all the African people from the African continent, going in a march towards Europe because of the climate change. They don't have the farms, they don't have trees, they don't have fruits, they don't have any livelihood. So they are marching into Europe. So if you want to, and nobody wants to leave their homeland for no reason at all. So if we want to stop these kind of things from happening, we have to have, I think, climate mitigation activities. So these two have to happen in tandem, and on a warlike footing, on a war footing. On the one hand, transition from fossil fuels into this thing. The second point you mentioned was about ocean mining, and that again is imminent. And again, the Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority is a good friend of mine. He was at LSE just after me, did exactly the same program. Michael Lodge. So I talk to him once in a while, and he is one of those people who is very optimistic that ocean mining will happen. And I hope that good sense will prevail, and the BBNJ convention that has just recently come will at least serve as a great as a check and balance.
This is what makes me so sad.
Yeah.
The BBNJ is a negative because it only deals with the column of water purposely.
Yes.
It doesn't deal with the seabed.
No.
And to tell people that the BBNJ will solve this problem is not a reality. It's purposely ignores the seabed, and it will do nothing to prevent the damage that would happen if we have deep seabed mining.
So absolutely, I mean, you're absolutely right, Avni. And in fact, again, like I said, if I don't want to be heretic, I might say that Arvid Pardo started the whole problem, and but,
that's what they call
that would be heresy. Saying that would be heresy, but
that's the sin of the fathers.
Yeah, but yeah, I see where you come from, Avni. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming. Yeah,
thank you for
Okay, thank you so much. Now, may I ask your question?
Yes, please.
Okay, because as the message from the Honorary President focus on the action for ocean and climate, so I'd like to concentrate on that as well. When you consider some form of pyramid, pyramid form, on the top of pyramid is policy, legal framework, advice that you are trying to do, think tank, people, expert, advise your several things. Then you come to management. The management and action will be done by government and other stakeholder. All right, multi-stakeholder and government. Government is not the only one, but civil society, as you mentioned, multi-stakeholder, public-private cooperation. So these people are management. And the beneficiary on the base of the pyramid are people.
Yes.
People who live on the coast, which are million of them.
Yeah.
So now at the moment we are talking at the top level. We are policy, we are think tank talking about it, and we have a kind of how are we going to drive this policy into action, and we keep talking about it, and we're trying to advise, advocacy, government, multi-stakeholder, trying to do activity. For example, World Ocean Day portal, it reached 1 million people only, okay, at the moment. And we're trying to reach how many million people in the world, okay? So that is what we're trying. But I think that we have tried not so much. We have been trying at the top level and the middle level, the management level, but not yet beneficiary action. So, for example, IOI, CIRDAP, trying to provide training to the government people to understand governance, to understand climate change, how to manage disaster, and how to provide a food security that impacted by climate change and disaster. We are trying to do that, but we need your solution. One of the main solution is finance.
Yeah,
we have little money. We have syllabus. We have activity, but activity we have done once a year only. Producing ocean ambassador, producing climate actors from the stakeholder, very small number. We want more and more. We need finance in order to have these people engage beneficiary on the ground.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that? You know, how many years now? We still struggle. We're still talking about how to finance this institution who are doing how many years? Half a century already, but we still struggle. So could you kindly provide a good solution on finance? I will be very happy and acknowledge your help. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is getting the right advocates, people who are able to talk about stuff, to go into the basically it's about lobbying. How best can you lobby?
Let me intervene. I want to demonstrate how mangrove can provide climate adaptation. To many countries.
Yeah, so
they would like to have mangrove kind of pilot plantation, but there is no money. What shall we do on the ground? Yeah,
you have to actually. I'll give you a small example of how people do it. I mean, are doing it. So I mentioned 14 trees in my talk. A friend of mine who does that near here. So what he does is, he takes, for example, he'll say, okay, anybody can come and visit me. Okay, anybody can come visit my place. I will show them. I'll give them a free breakfast. I'll give them a free lunch. And they see for themselves what a tremendous difference he has made. He has got a photograph from 2013, and he's got a photograph from 2020. I mean, you can see from in 2024. So he's got a landscape photograph in a spot he makes you stand, and you can see the landscape photograph, and you can see there was not a blade of grass growing there. And now there are 1.2 million trees in that area. Okay, so he demonstrates that. So once he demonstrates that, people like me, you, whoever goes there, he'll say, how much does a tree cost? How much does a tree cost? And he says, it costs 3,000 rupees. Okay, so people will say, like, I went and I said, okay, I will plant one tree on behalf of each of my family members. So we made that commitment right on the spot there. So I think it's a demonstrable benefit that will attract small or big donor. That's my simplistic view. You are of course more experienced working for CIRDAP, but that's my simplistic view of how to get funding by doing demonstrable things. The other is lobbying at all levels, particularly lobbying with your politician, because unless, see, the philanthropists will give you money. The big businesses might give you money, but if it is stipulated as a policy by the government that and it is implemented, so what you have to do is you have to hold the government accountable by saying that, yes, you said that every time you cut a tree, in India there's a law which says that every time you cut a tree, you should plant 2 trees. Okay, but how many trees are actually planted? And if they are planted, do they actually grow up to be? Are they nurtured until they become self-sustaining trees? No, that is where the problem is. So I think that kind of lobbying would be the other aspect. So one is demonstrable outcome that will lead people to give finances. and the other is constant lobbying, non-stop lobbying. And for lobbying, you need, people who will speak without fear of favor.
Can you identify them for us? These people.
I would do any amount of advocacy for anybody who would ask me to do.
I'd like to ask you to help.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be delighted to. Anything that is in line with my philosophy of socialist humanist or a humanist socialist, I'll be more than happy to do.
Okay, thank you very much for your help. Willing to help. So we both IOI and CIRDAP, we are approaching you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
You.
Now this is mine. So anyone would like to ask a final question or comments, please?
I would just like to add one more thing in line with IOI and CIRDAP that you just mentioned.
Okay.
I would like to mention that this is the third year now. For the third year now, myself and my colleague in India, Vinita Apte, her organization TARE Policy Center, who also works, by the way, in Bangladesh. So she would be a partner for you. Okay. So I will.
What is her name?
Vinita Apte. I will introduce. In fact, I'm sitting in her office now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
I will introduce her to you. And what I want to tell you, and Avni knows her, Antonella, myself, and Vinita Apte, we signed a tripartite agreement, and we are doing ocean literacy programs here for the third year running. We started in 2022, then we did in 2023, and we are continuing in 2024. In fact, Antonella came to Delhi last year to a conference invited by Vinita Apte of the TARE Policy Center, and we want to continue this interaction. So when you say partnership of CIRDAP and International Ocean Institute, I would like to add to that TARE Policy Center.
That's great initiative. I like to, and I have my proposal already ready to submit
Excellent.
to you.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, last question, if someone would want to ask our respected speaker, please. If not, I'd like to turn back to Ms. Huren Janet, our manager, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sunil Murlidhar SHASTRI, for your actually very awesome presentation. Thank you again. And thanks all for joining us. See you in next webinar.
How about photograph?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. So can you all please turn on your video? So we are going to take a group photo. Can you please?
Hi, Andy. Hi, Cosmin. Hello, Sumit, Smita, hello. Hi, Kerry. My wife and son are there in one picture.
Ah. Very nice.
Yeah. The handsome man. We can't hear you, Huren.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.